You voted for your most wanted top 10 Marvel Legends. We pulled the Instagram page at Power of X-Men, and I have to tell you, Familia, the amount of votes we got were next level, and I hand counted every single one. The characters on this list, I mean, it was unanimous, the ones that people wanted, and our number one was by a landslide. So thank you all who submitted on Instagram. Unfortunately, though, I don't know if this is true for everyone. Someone else can help me with this. But Instagram, it appears that once you get an X amount of submissions in the questions on your stories, it caps you off. I have no idea. We got a tremendous amount of people engaging with that story, but I felt like at a certain point, I was like, are we not getting, like, why did it just come to a screeching halt? Like maybe like, I want to say like 20 hours later, it came to a screeching halt. So I don't know what Instagram does, how that all works, but we got a very, very great amount of votes in. And again, our number one was a winner by a landslide. So let's dive into this list. Not surprisingly, an X-Men focused page. It's all going to be X-Men. Now, there was one non-X-Men that I'll mention at the end that came in actually at number 12. They came in at number 12, and I was like, okay, this is a non-X-Men character, but so many people want this character. Well, let's say maybe they're X-Men adjacent. It's not Wanda. But why don't we dive into this list? I'm very excited about this list. I think this is a good cultural sample of where X-Men fans are with Marvel Legends and which are the characters we want. So again, this is what you guys voted for. This is your top 10 list. I'm going to dive into it. We're going to kick off with an honorable mention, and the honorable mention is the Phoenix Five. That's right. A large chunk of you submitted Phoenix 5 for Marvel Legends that you wanted. And of course, the Phoenix 5 are from Avengers versus X-Men. This is when Hope Summers is ready to receive the Phoenix on the blue area of the moon, but the Phoenix is splintered into 5 fragments thanks to Tony Stark, and it goes into Cyclops, Emma, Namor, Magic, and Colossus. And if you were on the internet at the time, you take those first names out of everyone and it says penis, right? Pietro, Emma, Namor, Ileana, Scott. We were very close at getting one of the Phoenix Five. We were supposed to get a Phoenix Five Cyclops in Wolverine Legends. He was going to be a running change to the astonishing Cyclops. However, at the time, for nebulous reasons that have never truly been fully explained, the internet has since been a sleuth and discovered why. But the running changes during this era, they weren't making out. So, for example, for the Rocket Raccoon wave, we were supposed to get that White Phoenix figure, which I actually got the prototype for, but you were supposed to get White Phoenix and an Age of Apocalypse Jean. Those running changes never made it. Similarly, with Mystique, it was supposed to be Danny Moonstar. So they weren't coming out at the time. And Phoenix 5 Cyclops was one of the more anticipated figures, and we just never got him. We want the Phoenix 5. The Phoenix 5, their costumes are absolutely incredible. Magic is the one I theorize people want the most. Magic has an incredible look. So let's get the Phoenix 5. Avengers versus X-Men, I will tell you very candidly, is not a very good story, but much like House of M, because I don't think House of M is a well-written story either. However, Avengers versus X-Men and House of M have aged nicely within the Marvel canon. And of course, the MCU in its prime. I don't know. The feels on the MCU have changed, but the MCU at its prime, people really wanted Elizabeth Olsen's Scarlet Witch and the House of M saga, which would lead to Avengers versus X-Men. How it would be done, you leave it up to any of the fans and their theories out there. However, Avengers versus X-Men was not well written. I don't know if it was well received critically. It's the internet, so everyone can say however they feel about it. It was a sales juggernaut, though. It was very good on sales, but Avengers versus X-Men just really didn't live up to what X-Men fans were hoping for because it was the end of the Messiah complex saga in which a baby was born with an active X gene and she was supposed to save the mutant race. It was a very X-Men specific story, but because the Avengers had become so popular in the MCU, at the end of the story, it became Avengers versus X-Men, and they were billing it as a jumping on point for new readers, which infuriated so many of us at the time because this was supposed to be the end of a very big, large, epic story of the mutants fighting for survival, fighting against extinction. It's not supposed to be a jumping on story. It's not supposed to be an Avengers story. It's supposed to be the end of this really big story for the X-Men. Anyways, so that's honorable mention right there. The Phoenix Five. Note, without a doubt, their designs are great. And without a doubt, I agree that we need the Phoenix Five. I don't know how you would want to release it, maybe as a box set. I think a box set would be amazing. With our luck, it would be a San Diego Comic Con box set. No one will be able to get a hold of. But I think release them as a box set would be the preferred way of getting these figures, if not I hate to say sprinkle them through a couple of waves because then we'll never get any of them. We'll never be able to complete them. Or by the time we get all of them, some of them would need a redo. But anyways, a box set, I think, for the Phoenix 5 would be the more widely acceptable way of getting these figures. All right. Coming in at number 10, it's not going to be a shocker to anyone who's an X fan. Number 10 is a comics accurate Madelyne Pryor. Madelyne Pryor, since X-Men 97, has gotten so much attention from, let's say, general audiences. Madelyne has always been a popular character. I want to be very clear about that. We had Jordan D. White on the podcast when we first started Power of X-Men, and he told us he was shocked at how popular Madelyne was because she had just died in Hellions. And I remember thinking, I was like, dude, how are you the X-Men editor and you don't know that Madelyne Pryor has been always a popular character among fans? There's just something about her being a clone, but really her own person that has spoken directly to X-Men fans, especially a fan like me who, when she returned during the X-Man series and she was wandering the globe with Nate Gray, I absolutely loved it. So Madelyne is one of those characters that is just a fan favorite. She inspires a lot of intrigue from people, and because of X-Men 97, she's more popular than ever. And now I would say general audiences know who she is. So Madelyne Pryor, comics accurate. Of course, we were about to get her in the Engine of Vengeance, a HasLab from a couple years ago, but it did not get fully funded. It truly it was a backlash when Madelyne was announced because the only way you could get this figure that everyone wanted was to fund this multi-$100 HasLab that I don't want to say that not many people wanted because I think there was interest in it. Certainly I backed it because one, I wanted I wanted Madelyne Pryor. I forgot how much it was. We have videos on that, so go check out those videos. But let's say for argument's sake here, it was $399. I was going to pay $400 for Madelyne Pryor. I saw her at New York Comic Con when they were promoting the Engine of Vengeance. She looked great in person, but largely they were upset because Madelyne is not a Ghost Rider villain. And, we talked to Dwight about it. There are a lot of limitations, and how the rules and how the industry works seems to be case by case. But there seems to be a lot of limitations on how you can get certain characters in certain costumes out there, Madelyne being one of them. And they thought this was the best venue to get Madelyne out to fans. And I'm not one to disagree with that kind of logic. I assume that the sales team, the marketing team have all done their due diligence on the back end. So this was supposed to be the only way we could get Madelyne. It is curious to me that we can't get Inferno 3-pack in the way that we got Excalibur and X-Force 3-packs. If you do an Excalibur 3-pack with a Jean Grey in her yellow and red costume, you can re-release your X-Factor Cyclops however updated you want him to be, and a comics accurate Madelyne Pryor with a cable, which you already have the mold, just repaint it. So repaint that baby. It was a Hulk baby. It can be It was Cable in X-Men 97 Baby. You can make him a comics accurate Cable baby. And if you put that on like Hasbro Pulse stock, I can't imagine that wouldn't sell because you get an X Factor gene with the yellow and red, and you get a comics accurate Madelyne Pryor. I think the internet would go crazy for it. If a Savage Land box set can break HasbroPulse.com, I'm pretty sure an Inferno box set can break HasbroPulse.com. Again, I think that is the best venue to be able to get Madelyne Pryor, comics accurate Madelyne Pryor. How do you feel about this? Are you happy with the X-Men 97 Madelyne Pryor we got? I'm not too happy with her, to be completely honest. She looks very, very much like a cartoon. Two, she looks a little Bryce Dallas Howard to me, and I like Bryce Dallas Howard. That's not a jab, but it just doesn't look like Madelyne Pryor on both on the screen and on the comics. So as compared to the gene that we got in that wave, which I think that is very much a X-Men 97 accurate gene. All right, coming in at number 9 is Deathbird. Now, of course, if you follow along with this channel, you know we have reported that there is a long-standing speculation that from a source I got that Deathbird is coming as a two-pack with Gladiator, and that would be, I'm presuming, this is me presuming, it would be part of the Uncanny X-Men 275 release because her and Gladiator are featured in there, and Hasbro was really going the extra mile to make sure that we got figures based off of Uncanny X-Men 275, right? We got the Strikeforce box sets, we got the Walmart Xavier. Now, I would be very happy if we got her like that with chrome parts. If you're getting a Deathbird, if you are getting Deathbird, Deathbird has to be how she was released back in 1996 Ninja Force Wave by Toy Biz with the chrome parts. That's how you want her. I can't think of a better way to do the figure. In fact, I like to think the reason why she hasn't been announced is because they can't figure out how to do those chrome parts. She is going to come with a Gladiator accessory. But something that occurred to me while we're seeing the releases of these two packs for X-Men 97, Rogue and Gambit, Scott and Jean, Wolverine and Storm, I'm a little scared that she's going to be X-Men 97 Deathbird with Gladiator accessory because she did have a moment in X-Men 97 that fans just loved. She said Milky Way Ghetto. So are we going to get her in the X-Men 97 format? Oh, I would be so disappointed if we got X-Men 97 and not Uncanny X-Men 275. It's the difference between animated and comic book. I don't know. This is where I'm going to leave it to however the general fandom accepts it. I think we all want a Deathbird, but I don't want a Deathbird that I'm not going to be proud to display. And I know this is very neurotic, but like someone like Executioner, who's one of my favorite X-Men villains, I think he's a beautiful figure, but I cannot display him in my 90s X-Men comics display because he looks like an animated figure amongst comics accurate figures. That is just me. I acknowledge that that's not true for everyone. I'm curious how everyone else feels about that. You leave your comments on that below, but I want Deathbird to be comics accurate, Jim Lee, Uncanny X-Men 275 inspired. So let's see how it goes. Dan did take to, was it Twitter? I believe Twitter, because I think his Instagram, he keeps it just for personal. Dan on Twitter did say that we were going to get some Marvel Legends reveals. I have no tea on that, but let's see if maybe we can get a hint of a Deathbird. So number 9, Deathbird. Coming in at number 8 is Skin. Right, you have to do it like that from the Generation X TV movie. By the way, we do have the actor who played Skin, Agustin Rodriguez, on the podcast frequently. Please go check out those episodes. He is such a great guy. But Skin, now listen, Skin is an essential part of a Generation X display. We got him in the 5-inch Toy Biz Wave back in the day. Was he Wave 1? I believe he was Wave 1. I could be wrong, but he was Wave 1. He had the big hands and feet. He is proof of concept that you can do a Generation X Skin and can be sold at retail. I would do Skin how they release Monet and Chamber and Husk, just put him as part of a larger X-Men wave. I think he would thrive really well there. You have to give him some stretchable parts in the way that you would do Mr. Fantastic, right? Just do those swappable hands and feet, and boom, that's it. You have another character for your Generation X display. I would really, I do think out of all the characters that we're going to discuss on this list, I'm not saying that a Generation X skin is not possible or within the realm of possibilities, but I think there's some other characters they would prioritize first before Skin, sadly. But again, I think you need Skin. Skin is a non-negotiable character if you want to complete your Generation X display. He's going to become the Pharaoh. He's going to become the Rachel Summers if we don't get him sooner rather than later. All right, coming in at number 7, and I'm going to give a slight spoiler warning here for X-Men 97. Slight spoiler warning, but for number 7 on this wish list that the familia voted for is Feral Wolverine. Now, Feral Wolverine is my favorite iteration of Wolverine. This is a Wolverine that was very prominent post Fatal Attractions in the comics. He eventually becomes unferal because during the 12, he is relaced with his adamantium skeleton thanks to Apocalypse, and he becomes a horseman of death. So it's a very, I don't want to say it's like a small window, but it is a couple years, like 2-3 years that he's Feral Wolverine. Favorite version of the character, very pronounced during Onslaught, like the Joe Mad style. Does he have a blue bandana? Does he have a red bandana? It's an ongoing joke we have here at Power of X-Men, but that is my favorite version of the character. I would die if we got a comics accurate version of Feral Wolverine. But, I think X-Men 97 season 2, if what I know still to be true, oh, that kind of rhymed. I think we will be seeing a Feral Wolverine in season 2 of X-Men 97. And so if we get a Feral Wolverine, I think it would be in an X-Men 97 capacity. And maybe because of how feral and colorful and wild this figure is, he could double in a comics accurate display because during this era, right, the coloring were just for the characters were very bright. So perhaps that would be the case here, that you can get a Feral Wolverine and he can just like kind of fit in the way that I would argue that the purple costume Magneto from X-Men 97, the X-Men 97 wave does fit into a general comics display. I could let that one slide. Again, these are all case by case. You have to see how they look with the other figures. But I think if we are going to see a Feral Wolverine, I would wager it would be an X-Men 97 version before a comics accurate version. It is kind of weird that given the limitless amount of Wolverines we get, and I'm not complaining because I really do like Logan. Logan is one of my favorite characters. It's just curious to me that they've never done a Feral Wolverine given I don't know if I want to say the popularity. It's popular amongst diehard fans for sure, but I wonder general audiences, do they know about Feral Wolverine? But given his place in fandom, how about that? I'm shocked that when they were doing the 50th anniversary Wolverine box sets that they didn't throw in a Feral Wolverine there. I think that would have been fantastic. We did get a Feral Wolverine in the Onslaught wave of back in the day. That was a really, really nice figure. It was kind of like the last of the Toy Biz 5-inch. I think they were slightly bigger. They were kind of like the missing link between Toy Biz 5-inch and Marvel Legends. These figures, the Onslaught wave, were about 6 inches. So that's where we got Wolverine in his feral form. That's where we got a Jean Grey. And for the longest time before, oh wait, we didn't get a 90s Jean until 2013 with the Rocket Raccoon wave. But that Jean, if you wanted a 90s Jean, you put that Jean in your display. Anyways, a little Marvel Legends history there for those who have lived through this hobby for almost 3 decades. Is it almost 3? No, not almost 3 decades. I'm aging myself too much now, but let's say over 2 decades, over 2 decades. Okay, coming in at number 6 is Doug Ramsey, aka Cypher. Now, I am so tired of repeating this over and over again, and I apologize for the people who actually see us here on YouTube. But when we interviewed Ryan Tang back 5 years ago, he sort of implied that a New Mutants male figure in how we got Danny, Wolfsbane, and Karma would be coming down the line. Now, on the rumored leak list now, we have a rumored Doug Ramsey with a cannonball head, and it's a New Mutants army builder. So we can assume that Sunspot, would also be part of this packaging. Doug Ramsey has become so incredibly popular since the Krakoan age, right? He was killed off at New Mutants and New Mutants, and he remained dead. We got Doug Locke, which we love Doug Locke very much, but he remained dead until Necrosha when he was resurrected. And I wouldn't say the character got popular there, but stuff he was brewing. Like fandom was happy to see Doug Ramsey back. I don't recall there being any too much controversy that Doug Ramsey was among the living following the events of Necrosha. However, it was during House of X and Powers of 10 where it was established that he was the one who built Krakoa from the ground up. Xavier just dropped him off on Krakoa and was like, hey, we want to make this a mutant paradise. Can you figure out how it works? And can you create a language? And the gates and everything, the Krakoan gates and everything. And so it's all Doug Ramsey. Fantastic. I'm happy to see Doug Ramsey. Doug Ramsey is one of those characters that I have been wanting for such a long time, especially in the Krakoan age. I have fallen in love with Doug so much. I'm not as excited for Age of Revelations, but again, the character's having a moment in the comic books right now, so you would be foolish not to do it imminently, at least maybe. Well, I think Age of Revelations, did Tom Brevoort say that it was supposed to come out later? They thought it would be later, but it's ready sooner. So I wonder if maybe if there's any synergy between editorial and Hasbro. I wonder if maybe they're saving Doug for 2026 when Age of Revelation is supposed to come out. I don't know. This is just us speculating here. Anyways, regardless, I'm happy to see Doug Ramsey. However, Doug Ramsey, my ideal perfect Doug Ramsey would be the Ten of Swords Doug Ramsey of the Krakoan age. So it's basically the Krakoan costume with the Warlock arm, except for one little detail. He has a Warlock sword because of the Ten of Swords crossover. I would want that so bad. Oh, that would be a dream come true. Not doable if it's an army builder. If it's an army builder, they're giving us a standard New Mutants male costume and they're calling it a day. But I'm not going to complain for Doug Ramsey, especially with how Hasbro is nailing the likenesses of the characters. I'm sure that just a standard New Mutants body with the Doug Ramsey head is going to go a long way. But in a perfect world, in the most perfect world that exists, it would be Krakoan era Doug with the Warlock sword. Oh, that would make me so happy. All right. Now we are getting into our top five. And it was undeniable that these were the top fives that people wanted. Number 5 is Penance. Now, I didn't mention Penance in my speculation video because I thought of all the characters right now, she would probably be at the lower end of the Generation X characters they would do, especially given that it has been revealed that Monet can transform from her human form to her penance form. So the question is, do we get a Monet with swappable penance parts, or do we get the original intended version of penance that Scott Lobdell had wanted from Generation X? That's my vote. The Generation X original intent, Scott Lobdell, before they got into all of the twins nonsense. That's what I would do. I would do that version of Penance. Every series sort of has your flagship character, right? Like X-Men in general has Wolverine. Generation X, I would say your flagship character is Penance. I mean, she has like the red hardened skin. She has the long claws. Originally, Scott Lobdell wanted her to be Death. And that's why in those first couple of issues, she's not responding to people. No one understands why she isn't talking. Character has so much love behind her. After Scott Lobdell left, another writer came along and sort of messed with what was the original intention. So the character, unfortunately, in the Generation X iteration no longer exists. So again, back in the day, you would have seen me arguing that, like, okay, let's get a House of M Monet with swappable Penance parts. Because again, I'm coming from this perspective of like, oh, we would never get dedicated Generation X figures, and now we have three. So I would want her in her Generation X costume. We did get her in the 5-inch lines back in the day, and she was a fantastic figure to have. How would you want her, though? Would you want her in that Generation X, like bathing suit costume, or do you want her in that like black leather costume? I'm curious how you guys would want. I would imagine that this figure is being tossed around at the Hasbro meetings that they are asking these same exact questions. There's so many ways that you can make this figure. I think you have to copy the Generation X iconic cover. That's just how it needs to be done. If you want my opinion, that's your safest bet. Just copy that cover. Later down the line, I would do M with the swappable Penance parts. All right, coming in at number 4 is Age of Apocalypse Storm. And I have to tell you, it does somewhat baffle me that we haven't gotten Age of Apocalypse Storm, given that it is Storm, and Storm is such a popular character. And you would think if you go to retailers and be like, here's a different version of Storm, they're like, give us so many of them. But in fairness to Hasbro, Storm, who appeared in Amazing X-Men, who was in a relationship with Pietro in the Age of Apocalypse, Storm, quite frankly, does not have that big of a storyline in Age of Apocalypse. She is a B character in the Age of Apocalypse at best. But again, it doesn't matter because you need her to help complete your Age of Apocalypse display. In fact, a lot of the Amazing X-Men, we don't have figures of them. We don't have Dazzler. We don't have Quicksilver. I mean, can you imagine if we got a Dazzler, Age of Apocalypse Dazzler with the Siggy accessory? We will not get a Siggy accessory, but maybe Pietro could come with a nanny bot accessory. So an Age of Apocalypse Storm, it's one of those characters that you just gotta do. I'm shocked that we haven't seen her yet, given the character's popularity. And again, Storm is one of those characters that you can sprinkle her in a wave, and folks would just be so happy to get her. And I'm telling you, an Age of Apocalypse, we need more Age of Apocalypse figures. We need a redo on Nightcrawler because the Nightcrawler we got was Age of Apocalypse, but is in an X-Force costume. The Iceman we got is also Uncanny X-Force Iceman, not the original Joe Mad inspired design. So right there, Iceman, Nightcrawler, Sinister, Storm, Quicksilver, Dazzler. There is your next wave, and you can do a Build-A-Figure accurate Nemesis, right? Very different than Genocide, who we got. Genocide is the 616 Uncanny X-Force interpretation of the character. But Nemesis, aka Holocaust, they changed the name for the obvious reasons. That is the Age of Apocalypse version of the character, born in Age of Apocalypse, whereas Genocide is born in 616. All right, that's my Age of Apocalypse rant. Give us Age of Apocalypse Storm. All right, our top 3 is not going to be surprising if you are a diehard X-Men fan. We have been asking for these figures alongside with Rachel Summers and Farrell, but now that we're getting Rachel and Farrell, they're off the list. So here are our top 3. Coming in at number 3 is Sync. And of course, it's going to be Sync. He was incredibly popular in Generation X. The Chris Pacello art, he just pops off the page with his rainbow effects. And in the Krakoan era, he has blown up in popularity. He was popular in Generation X, and he's even more popular now thanks to the Krakoan era and being part of the X-Men team. He was elected to the team in the second year of the Hellfire Gala. He trained with Jean. This is just one of those characters that everyone unanimously wants. And I'm shocked that we haven't gotten him yet. He can double for a House of X display, and he can double for your Generation X display. Character became, I'm going to tell you the moment that Sync, just everyone lost their minds with Sync, was in the X-Men Hickman title, where he goes into the vault with Laura, aka Wolverine, and they stay in the vault for like 100 years, and they have like a romance, and he comes out and she's dead, and he has to see a resurrected version of his Laura. It's just so it gets a little confusing explaining it, but that's where people lost their minds with that sync, and he was harboring this history with Laura Wolverine, and Laura Wolverine is the resurrected pre going into the vault version of Laura. So that is when everyone lost their mind for Sync. So it is a no duh that we want a Marvel Legends. Sync, he is one of those characters that is just incredibly important to your display. Give us Sync. Number two, it's also a character that's become very popular thanks to Krakoa, is Exodus. He's a member of the Quiet Council. I mean, he is quite literally the only member of the original Quiet Council that does not have a Marvel Legends figure. We have Magneto, even in that white costume. Same with Xavier with the helmet, the Cerebro helmet. We have Apocalypse. We have Storm. Okay, we need a more comics accurate, like X-Men Red era Storm. Jean, obviously in her Marvel Girl costume. We have Sebastian Shaw. We have Emma. We have Nightcrawler. We have Sinister. We have Mystique. We even have Destiny, who would join later down the line. Exodus is the only Quiet Council member that we do not have. And they're doing the acolytes because we have Cortez, which listen, I'm not going to complain because I love Fabian Cortez. He is my favorite acolyte. He's one of my favorite characters. I would have preferred him in his sword costume from the Krakoan era. That's okay. That is okay. I will take him as his 90s version with the ponytail, but we do need him. And the acolytes in general, I think Frenzy is another one that all of us want to see in Marvel Legends format. So could you release him as a two-pack with Frenzy? Or again, he's so popular, you can just release him in an X-Men wave and people would be incredibly excited for. Now, if Age of Apocalypse Storm never got her due in the 5-inch line, Exodus, we got him back in it was the X-Men line, but it was like the X-Force sub brand. So we got an Exodus there. Again, great figure. And I love saying this proof of concept that this figure can be done and hit retail and people will buy the figure and enjoy the figure. So you need to have him with the white cape, with the armored parts popping out of his shoulders. Just please give us Exodus. Exodus number two. All right, and coming in at number one by a landslide is Outback era Psylocke. They're releasing the Outback team. Your last one right now is gonna be Psylocke. I mean, we're getting Storm, Outback era Storm already. But we've gotten Dazzler as part of the Mojo box set, and she's been released in the past. We've had Brown Wolverines. We have the Target Storm that's coming up. And yeah, you could do a different iteration of Storm. We have gotten the Punk Rock Storm as well. So the Storm that we're going to get with like the Bolt, we've got an Outback era Rogue, perhaps, a Colossus that's shirtless, that's fine, but there is a Colossus floating out there. And we, of course, have Havoc. And, I guess we could do a Madelyne Pryor, show some Maddie some love. We also have gotten Longshot, the one that is missing. So, like in our face missing is armored Psylocke. Now, we did know that Psylocke was supposed to be coming down the line in an armored version a couple of years ago, and we all thought it was going to be the Outback era, but it turned out to be Lady Mandarin, or understandably so, they changed it to Lady Psylocke, and it was based off of the Jim Lee covers. But that's a beautiful figure. That is a beautiful figure. Mark my words. That I'm happy that figure exists, but we wanted the Outback era Psylocke, and it's the armor that Wolverine, and it would have made sense because that's the armor that Wolverine made for her after an attack by Sabretooth, and this armor was supposed to help shield her because this is pre-body swap with Quanon and her having her ninja abilities. So, when they were doing the Wolverine 2-packs, you're like, wow, are they going to give us an armored Psylocke from the Outback era? I want this figure so badly. I'm curious, is this your number one pick? I think they can do it so well. They have been nailing the Psylocke figures to date. I mean, the Marvel versus Capcom Psylocke is probably the best Psylocke figure ever in existence. I'm sure Hasbro can be like, hold my beer. I'm going to give you an even better one. I would want her with swappable heads. How would you release her? I leave it up to you, Familia, to tell me how she should be released. Should she be a Hasbro Pulse exclusive? Should she be a Target exclusive? Should she be part of a larger wave? Should she be a two-pack with a shirtless Colossus? So you tell us, Familia. All right. And as promised, the honorable non-X-Men character that came in at number 12 was, drumroll please, Wiccan. Now, I'm curious why we haven't gotten an updated Wiccan. The only Wiccan we ever got was back in like 2005 as part of that Young Avengers box set, which I was one of the first to get because I bought it off of eBay. Because back in Kansas in 2005, Walmart accidentally released the box set before its street date, and everyone was losing their mind. And the figures are gorgeous. I have to tell you, I was just going through Marvel Legends the other morning, and that figure still holds up in my opinion. But of course, Hasbro will be like, hold my beer and give us a much better one. But given the popularity of Agatha amongst fans, I'm surprised we didn't at least get an MCU Wiccan. I did not pride that much on this because I think most people would want a comics accurate Wiccan. And it should be said that a chunk of these votes were Wiccan and Hulkling. So you could do a Wiccan and Hulkling two-pack for this. All right, Familia, that is the top 10 Marvel Legends list that you all voted for. Do you agree with these figures? Let us know your feelings in the comments. And since you're going to be in the comments section, hit that subscribe button, ring that notification bell so you always see us here talking about Legends on Power of X-Men. But again, leave your feelings in the comments below. Who would you like to see? Who is your most wanted Marvel Legends character? Who needs an updated figure? Let us know in the comments, and thank you so much, Familia.